a reminder that this episode will also appear on Food Tank's podcast, Food Talk with Danny Nierenberg. So please sign up wherever you listen to podcasts. Today, I get to chat with Jeff Gordinier, the food and drink editor at Esquire. Jeff, it feels like a million years ago, but in January, we were together. Foodie part of Sundance with people like Chef Alice Waters and food adventurer and actor David Moscow and a bunch of other really cool foodie people. And I don't know how to wrap my head around that sort of situation a few months ago to what is happening today. Before we begin, I just want to make sure that you and your family are healthy and safe, and that everyone's sort of getting through this.
Everyone is healthy and safe, and we are very grateful for that. I'm not sure we're entirely sane anymore. So,
who is, right?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, I have 4 kids, and right now they're all in the house.
Sure.
The days they're all here. And we don't have any childcare at the moment, so the toddlers just run rampant. Our dining table looks like something from Grey Gardens. It just has chunks smeared all over it, like we're beyond cleaning it. And I actually do a lot of my writing at that disgusting table or here in my 17-year-old daughter's bedroom. This is her room. She is letting me use it right now for this interview. We're getting there. I mean, we're grateful that we're healthy, of course. So.
Of course, no, I know, but it doesn't diminish like what parents are going through right now. So I feel for you, and thanks to your daughter for letting us have this conversation with a little bit of privacy.
Margo. Thanks, Margo.
Yeah,
I mean, for some reason, I have cranked out like 12 articles for Esquire over the last 5-6 weeks. And I don't normally work at that pace. It's a monthly magazine, but I've been doing a lot for online.
Right.
And in the midst of this chaos at home, and I must just be some way in which I cope. I don't know. I feel compelled to weigh in. I think a lot of writers out there, Pete Wells, Lisa Abend, Helen Rosner. I mean, I think those of us who write about food all feel compelled to stand up and say something right now.
Absolutely.
More than ever.
Absolutely. No. Well, I mean, I can't imagine how much your life has changed. I mean, you literally write about restaurants and food and chefs, including, the last time we talked about your book Hungry, which I love.
Thank you.
And what you do is you travel and you write and you eat, and it's hard to do all of those things right now. And so I'm just wondering, how are you coping? I know it's like hard to cope with family life when everyone's around you, and I'm sure it's also nice to have that closeness, but how are you coping with literally your job changing?
Well, I'm coping by working, so that seems to be helping. But you're tapping into something very true. I mean, for me, what most people would consider the comfort zone is not the comfort zone. Like, I'm not comfortable just being home all the time. That's unusual for me. My comfort zone is what most people would maybe find discomfort in, which is thrusting yourself into new situations all the time, dropping into a city. Maybe it's a city you've never been to. Maybe it's a country you've never been to, finding your way around, eating food, in some cases, food that's, you've never encountered before, meeting people, like learning. I have an appetite for that, as do my fellow food writers. This is how we get off. This is exciting to us to keep learning and keep exploring the world. That's all shut down at the moment. So, I mean, I do all of my reporting just like this. I talk to people on various digital platforms and call them and email them. I miss contact. It's hard for me to interview people without that face-to-face contact. But we're all in that place. It's I find myself very like voracious, like longing just to be in a buzzy restaurant. Just it's not even about the food. It's just I want to be in Via Carota on a busy night, or La Crocodile, around cool, interesting people, and just feel the energy of the city. I mean, that partly why I came to New York City. I love that kind of energy. shoulder to
Right. I mean,
shoulder, you know?
yeah, for sure. No, I mean, I'm, not gonna lie, I miss a good cocktail, miss a good meal. It
Yeah.
doesn't even have to be a fancy restaurant. It can be the place around the corner. And I think all of us are having a hard time without that sort of physical connection to people, even people we don't know. Just being around people makes me feel less lonely, especially when I'm traveling and writing about farmers or whatever. Whenever you're around other people in a restaurant, it just makes you sort of feel, that you're part of the culture, that you're part of what's going on in that city or that place or that village or whatever.
Yeah, it's like being at a concert, it's like being at an athletic event where just something is happening. It's funny you asked this because I'm not making this up and I'm not trying to be Mr. Name Droppy, but Rene Redzepi just called me about an hour ago when I was eating lunch, just out of the blue, and it was so nice to hear his voice. And
That's awesome.
he's got brilliant insights about what's happening in Denmark and around the world. But he was telling me that they're thinking of making a portion of Noma in Copenhagen, a portion of the kind of property into a wine bar when things are open, so that people can congregate there, get a glass of wine, get snacks, because he feels like tasting menus, which Noma specializes in, are not exactly central maybe to what everyone is longing for right now. What people are longing for is community and connection and looseness. And, it's funny because in Hungry, my book, it ends with the lines with Rene saying, it can change, it can change, it can change about Noma. He got more than he bargained for. It sounds like he's already evolving Noma into having different component parts that will speak to this moment. I think a lot of chefs around the world are thinking that way.
Right. Yeah, so many restaurants are getting more than they bargained for sure. You've been writing a lot about, the sort of political situation around how restaurants in this country are coping. And I was really, frankly pissed off when I read about how much money Roost Steakhouse was getting, how much money Potbelly was getting from these small business loans, these small business program loans that are being administered. And you wrote this incredible piece about Esquire about how the Trump administration is really writing a death sentence for America's most important restaurants. And you mentioned St. Louis. I grew up outside of St. Louis, and that's a city that gets a bad rap for lots of reasons. Some of them are necessary, but the last time I was there is like a great food scene, and not just sort of the fancy places, but also these really neighborhood wonderful places where people are getting together that weren't there when I was growing up, certainly. And so I'm scared for them. I'm scared for the restaurants that I go to in Baltimore. I'm scared for the fun restaurants I get to visit all over the world, whether it's Milan or, Dakar or wherever. What do we do? Jeff? Like, how do we sort of wrap our heads around the idea that some of the restaurants, the places, where I mentioned this before on a live cast, where people have first dates, so they break up, or they meet new people. They're a really special part of how we gather as a society.
They are, and it's interesting you mentioned St. Louis, because I do the Esquire Best New Restaurants list every year, and I do with Kevin Sintumong, my comrade in arms, my editor. We do the best bars list every summer. We actually just finished the best bars list. We're still running it because we want to celebrate these bars. It'll come out in the summer. But as part of my research for that, I went around the Midwest a lot over the recent weeks. I went to Cincinnati, Cleveland, Columbus, Ohio, Indianapolis, and St. Louis, and parts in between. And a lot of driving too. And I was so excited. I've been to all those cities before for different reasons, but the scenes really seem to be blowing up. And like you said, in St. Louis, for instance, you have Balkan Treat Box, which is these great Eastern European flatbreads. I mean, it's not fancy by any means. People lined up at 11 o'clock to get in there, get the, just spirit, community spirit, love for one's heritage being expressed through that food. So this is a true story. When I was driving around, I had I carry around pieces of paper. I'm old school, and I wrote down like red state restaurants. When I was like, this is interesting. Ohio, Indiana, Missouri, they all went for Trump in the 2016
Right.
election. And we're seeing this little insurgency of creativity with these restaurants. I mean, we're seeing ideas being expressed about nature and the environment, better ways of farming, different approaches to storytelling, stories about immigration. Like, you know, these restaurants represent a sort of cultural counterpoint to the rhetoric of the Trump administration, and they're in red states. That's interesting. So I mean, this is months ago. I wrote that down weeks ago, and it never really went anywhere. And because I couldn't figure out how to make that into an article, right?
Sure,
And then on Friday, I was making breakfast for my kids here at the kitchen table. Literally, I just flipped open my laptop and I started typing. As it was not an assignment. My editors did not know I was doing this. I started typing about traveling through the Midwest and, you know, what I encountered in St. Louis and Indianapolis and Cleveland and Cincinnati. And as I typed, I got up, make some more breakfast for Toby, and get back, clean up this, and type. I started getting angrier and angrier. I just was, and it was just like very natural. And I was going on Instagram. I'm seeing all these great chefs, people like Martha Hoover, Chris Cosentino, all these people weighing in on the Ruth's Chris, the situation where Ruth's Chris, this corporate chain, this publicly traded corporate chain, got $20 million in government aid. And then I'm seeing people tweeting, you know, brilliant people like Kat Kinsman tweeting about how there's this White House panel to help restaurants, and it's nothing but like some fine dining chefs and a bunch of Pepsi and Coke and McDonald's. And I'm like, what's going on? I was just like, there was no thought process. I was just angry. And somehow the Midwestern thing led into that, and I typed it and sent it to my editors, to Michael Sebastian, the editor-in-chief of Esquire, Kevin Sintumong, my editor, Sarah Rentz, Ben Boscovich. I just sent it to them in a file, and I was like, I don't know if this makes any sense. I honestly don't know what the hell I just wrote. If y'all don't want it, you can just delete it. No, I'm not kidding. I was like, it's probably just nonsense. I don't know. Because my brain is in a fog with the parenting. So, and Michael Sebastian, you know, he was like, there's fire in this piece. This is amazing. He read it right away, and he's like, we should just run it. And I was like, oh, okay. Sarah Rentz, Kevin Sintamong, they had some good edits, a couple comments, a couple tweaks, and then we just hit send. We just basically just pulled the trigger and put it out there on Friday evening, right? Expecting nothing. I'm giving you this as context because I had no idea it was going to become this viral sensation, which, I mean, it's gotten a lot of traffic. It's been tweeted all over the place, shared all over the place. I'm so many DMs on my, I can't even, I apologize to people. I try to always be polite and say thank you to everyone. I can't. There's hundreds of them. And, you know, you just never know. I didn't expect that would happen. I thought it was just like Jeff's weird riff or something. So I guess it maybe tells you something about the importance of
wonderful homage to the Midwest and the sort of, you know, you mentioned it before, like, you know, cultivating cultures that have, you know, moved from other places to these parts of the country, and how they're sort of, you know, establishing new ideas in the culinary world. And I just found it, you know, it pissed me off, right? You know, to sort of understand what was happening. But I also found it very hopeful. I mean, if we can save these restaurants, then we're saving, you know, a piece of America that is so important. So I mean, I think what it was like a call to arms almost, you know, for me especially.
Cool. Yeah, that's good to hear. I mean, do you love American culture, really? I mean, what it comes down to, do you love our music? Do you love our food? Do you love the people who cook this food in this country? Do you love all the stories they're telling? Do you love American literature? Do you love bookstores? I mean, I know I sound crazy making all these connections, but I feel like all of that is at risk of being eradicated. And there's almost some kind of intention behind it. It seems like all these things through which people express alternative ideas and regenerative ideas, all these things are being blocked and erased and squashed. Now, I mean, the restaurants are closed because they had to close because of a pandemic.
Sure.
They're closed to protect us. They're doing the right thing.
Sure.
It's not the government's policy for that. I mean, that's just a necessity of the moment around the world.
Right.
But the government's policy in terms of who do they help and which small businesses are they going to try to rescue, I mean, that's where it's just fraught. We're seeing this incredible gap between, I mean, I just find it hard to believe that Potbelly needs our help. I mean, don't they have money? They must. I mean, I'm not a business person, believe me, but I'm sitting here thinking these are corporations that must have like stock and savings, rainy day funds. I mean, you know, what are you talking about? Like, and so it was my own outrage, but it was outrage, as you saw on Instagram and on Twitter, of all these other people too. I just thought, well, I guess I'll be a conduit for this, you know?
Absolutely. No, I'm glad you are. And you know, and it begs the question, and you bring this up, do we want, you know, on one side, it's, you know, all drive through, all fast food, you know, places. And on the other side, you know, what did you call them? The foie gras places, you know, the so high end places that nobody, you know, a very few, the 1% are the folks who go there. And we're in the middle, or where can I go eat, Jeff? Like, that's what I want to know.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, are we just going to have, you know, highway rest stops and country clubs? Like, that's, you know what I mean? It seems like all the crap you see at highway rest stops, and then this kind of country club, you know, fancy pants, old school cooking. Now look, I mean, believe me, Thomas Keller, Daniel Boulud, Jean-Georges, Wolfgang, very talented. I mean, in all their restaurants, you know, restaurants from all of them, not every single one, but I mean, I have deep respect for their talent. That's not the question here.
Right.
The question is, who's going to advocate for everybody else? Who's going to stand up for the mom and pop places, the noodle shops, the taco stands, the bistro around the corner that's been there forever? I mean, from what I understand from documentaries I've seen and things I've read, Chinese restaurants are the most dominant kind of restaurant in America. Like, there's more Chinese restaurants, mom and pop family owned places, than there are McDonald's around the country. And they have been for decades. Who's standing up for them?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, who's standing up for those people? I mean, why is there no representation? It's crazy. I mean, bring in Will Sintag from Namwa Tea Parlor to be on that panel. I mean, I could name hundreds of people. It just, I'm, you know, so that's why it was not like people are appalled at Wolfgang Puck per se. I mean, that's not the point. It's like, you know, it's about representation. It's about making sure that everyone is being looked after. All sorts of types of restaurants and businesses and bars and bakeries, and you know what I mean? So somebody's asking a question. What is taking place when you're reporting with takeaway from restaurants?
A good one. Good catch.
You want to ask that?
You can go ahead and answer it.
Okay. There's a Baldur truck outside. We're getting I'm not kidding. The food is here. I was getting a little worried because the milk for the toddlers is in that truck, and we are like, we have no bread. We had running out of milk. So, thank you, Baldur. Anyway, that was not a corporate endorsement.
I love Baldur.
Yeah, they're really saving us right now.
Thomas McQuillan is stepping up to the plate for us all.
You know what? They're doing a good job. I mean, anyway, I've written a few things about takeout and delivery for Esquire. One thing was about Michael Salakis, who's got a Greek restaurant right down the street here called MP Taverna. My wife and I had many dates there when we were dating, and we've had family parties there. And, you know, I love the guy. I've eaten at MP Taverna literally like probably 200 times. And, you know, he got to a place where he had to shut down, furlough everybody, and he was cooking by himself in the kitchen. So I wrote a piece for Esquire about my experience of going there to pick up the takeout and seeing it was just Michael. So I kind of interviewed him from 6 feet away, you know. And then I did another piece where I went out. We're also not far from Blue Hill at Stone Barns, kind of a famous, you know, I did a food tank talk with Dan Barber. It's like 50 minutes away. So I went and got one of their dinners in a box. At that time, it was $50, which is a pretty amazing deal for the Stone Barns level ingredients. And And I guess to answer the question, what I've seen is an evolution. Like in the beginning, Michael Salakis is there at MP Taverna by himself cooking. You know, he wasn't wearing a mask. You know, our knowledge is evolving. Even a week later, when I went to Blue Hill at Stone Barns, everybody's wearing a mask. Everybody's got gloves. There's a whole protocol of cleanliness and safety. They're testing their temperatures. You know, and the way it's evolving now, I'm seeing. You know, a lot of people just don't want to take the risk. A lot of the restaurant owners, they don't want to put their employees at risk. They don't want to put themselves at risk, having contact with a lot of people. I am cooking up a storm. I'm Instagramming all the stuff I'm cooking, and I'm learning a lot about cooking. I must tell you, but I'm also getting real sick of it. You know, like I mean, cooking for all these people. I got dirty pans and pots right now, and I would be cleaning them now because the babies are taking a nap. But you know, so there's 2 places near us that are doing delivery, and one's delivery and one's pickup. Mandarin, which is this James Beard semifinalist Chinese restaurant not far away. Amazing. We're depending on them. They're also delivering a lot of food to hospitals, to White Plains Hospital. And Goose Feather, which is Dale Talde. You know that chef Dale Talde?
Yeah.
He has a restaurant like 5 minutes from me here. And incredible.
You live in the best place.
I know. We're just like a lot of star chefs, when they move into the suburbs, seem to move in around here. So we're just really blessed. I mean, the Dale Talde restaurant, Goose Feather, is really good. It's like Hong Kong style food, a lot of dim sum. And they have these set menus. So what they do is like a beef menu or a shrimp menu or like a holiday menu. And so you don't have to argue with your family about what you're ordering. You just pick the dinner. It's smart. And you get all the stuff in it. And when I go now, I go pick it up to make sure they get the money, because I want Dale and his team to get the money. I don't want some middleman to get the money, you know? So they come out with gloves. They have a whole protocol, whole system. I don't know. What do you do? Are you doing a lot of delivery takeout stuff?
I haven't been. We did it, you know, right before. I live in Baltimore, Maryland. So before the governor announced the lockdown, we went and got takeout because all the restaurants were closed during that time. But now we're cooking all the time. And so, I mean, because I travel so much, like the joy of eating out is sometimes gets old for me. You know, I'm not gonna lie, but now I wish for nothing more. I just want to go sit at any crappy bar or any good bar and just like, you know, like be around people. And it's I understand what a huge you know, it's a personal thing. It's this, you know, I feel for all the chefs and bartenders and food service workers, you know, who are lost their jobs and lost their income. It's a terrible thing. I do want to get back to this idea of community, though, that you talk about in your article. It's not, I mean, you and I are talking about how beautiful restaurants are and how, you know, what tasty food they give us, et cetera. But they build communities. I mean, restaurants open and other stuff opens around them. And, you know, I'm not talking about sort of the gentrifying part of it. I'm talking about how they create a community of, you know, families can walk to them or walk by them or get takeout, you know, in a normal circumstance. And I'm just really, we've been trying to, you know, be very positive on these live casts and talk about, you know, a post-COVID world and what that will mean for the food system. But if the restaurants are gone, I will be very depressed if I can't walk to the restaurant. You know, we live near the water. If I can't walk and sit by the water and eat at those restaurants, it's going to be sad. And I don't mean to be selfish when all of this other stuff is going on, but that's a community of people who, you know, names, I don't always know their names, but I know their face. They know my face. You know, they know what I like to drink. They know what I like to eat. It'll be a very different world if those restaurants aren't around anymore.
Yes, it will. And it will be a different world for all the different ancillary companies that are connected to those restaurants.
Right.
Those restaurants catalyze neighborhoods. You know, as Eduardo Jordan in Seattle, chef of June Baby, talked about in my Esquire piece, you know, if you go to June Baby, you know, usually there's a wait. I've been early when I've been to June Baby or Lucinda Grain Bar, his bar next door. And I go wander around, go to this old record store, get some vinyl. I actually have a Little Richard record here that I bought for my daughter, Margot, like a vintage record.
Nice.
There's coffee houses. There's a bookstore. You know, you amble around the neighborhood. You spend money elsewhere. So it catalyzes community in that way.
Yeah.
But then there's also, you know, as I said in one of my pieces, restaurants are like coral reefs. They're ecosystems that allow these other life forms to flourish. So you have florists bring flowers to the restaurant. You have incredible amounts of, you know, numbers of farmers who supply meat products, vegetables, fruits, herbs, microgreens, whatever, you know.
Yeah.
They get business through restaurants. You have the people who clean the linens. You have the plumbers who clean,
Right.
you know, fix the toilets. A thunderstorm's coming in. We lost power the other day. So if we lose power, it'll be very dramatic end here.
We'll hurry up.
You know, I tell you something. It sucks to lose power anytime, but it really sucks when you just got a delivery from Baldur. You know, like if we get all this milk and the fridge goes, oh man. So anyway, I live right near the Hudson River, and there's a lot of winds, and these storms really hit bad here.
Yeah, I get it. A storm came through here right before we got on the podcast, so I'm glad we could talk.
Oh.
So I want to go back to this idea, you know, we're talking, you bring it up in your piece about 500,000 restaurants that employ 11 million.
Yeah.
About that. So you talked about the ecosystem of businesses that support restaurants, but why else should we be worried about this stuff? What is the sort of, you know, biggest thing, the biggest takeaway you think you know from that piece that you wrote for Esquire?
I mean, the core thing is that millions of people will be unemployed. You know, I mean, millions of people are already furloughed and are losing their jobs in all different fields. The restaurant business is a business that employs it. That's a James Beard Foundation figure I got, but they said there's 500,000 independent restaurants with about 11 million employees. Those, if a sizable percentage of those places, if they go under, all those people lose their work. And that's just part of the economy. I mean, it's devastating. It's devastating to our communities. It's devastating to their lives, you know? And have you seen these lines? There's lines of cars for miles just to pick up food at you know, services where they provide food to people in need. I mean, those lines have quadrupled, exponentially longer lines of people suddenly in desperate straits. Do you hear the rain? It's like pounding here. I'll turn this up. So,
I can't hear it, but yeah.
Oh, it's like a monsoon. It's crazy. So, you know, first and foremost, those people losing their jobs. But secondly, you know, you're going to have communities that are like denuded landscapes. They're like scorched earth. They'll have no sense of cultural context, no place for people to hang out. You just have your Applebee's and the country club, and that's it. I mean, who wants to live there? I mean, you know, like,
That's how I grew up. That's how I grew up in the Midwest.
I don't want to live in that country.
I don't.
You won't. You know, you won't just. Also, we're not talking about fancy hip. You know, I in my article I mentioned Cosme and Estella in New York, which happen to be two of my favorite restaurants in the world. Yeah, but I could see how somebody would say, well, those are sort of, you know, a bougie food writers kind of restaurants. We're not talking about just that. We're talking about everything. The diner down the street that's been in the same family for 4 generations. We're talking about Chinese restaurants, taco stands, you know, the place where your grandparents got engaged, you know, so it's like you rip that out and you rip out the heart of the community, whether it's a city, whether it's a village, it's an agricultural community. I travel all over the country. I feel like I have some authority on this because I travel all the time. And I see this everywhere I go. Every single state has places that are sort of a testament to that local spirit. And that's why you go there. That's what's so exciting, you know? It's Utah, you're in Montana, you're in Maine, you're in, you know, Maryland. What do you find? Oh, this is the great old place. I mean, Seattle, like I was in Seattle not that long ago. And yeah, I hit Lucinda Grain Bar, and I do like to go to Canlis, I won't lie. But I also found there's all these great old places in Seattle that somehow I had never been to. Little oyster shops hidden away, an incredible breakfast place overlooking the harbor there. I mean, it's like layers. It's like sedimentary layers of culture and history.
It is. It's real history.
Yeah.
And it's real sort of infusions of kinds of different kinds of people. On the corner about 2 blocks from us, there's a Yemeni restaurant that we love. And it's just like, it's a hole in the wall, to be honest. And it like serves the best food and, just wonderful dishes that you can't get anywhere else. And like, I can't imagine them not being there. And it's, and they're the only, people from Yemen I see all week. You know what I mean? It's just this incredible sort of, like mixing pot of people, and again, I'm just sad. So I think that like what I want you to answer next is, what can we as eaters do? The people who love to go out, who love to eat, who love to support, whether it's a hole in the wall like the Yemeni restaurant I really like, or a really fancy restaurant, or something in between. What should we be doing right now?
It's a good question, and I am asking the same question because I'm not an activist. I'm not like wired this way, I'm just a writer. So look, first, if you can get takeout and delivery safely and support these places, do so. If you can buy one of their t-shirts, you can buy 10 of their t-shirts, give them to people for Christmas or for birthdays, please do that. If you can buy their cookbooks, that helps. Some of these chefs have cookbooks. Pick up their cookbooks. But beyond that, I think we're at the point of advocacy, whether you like it or not. I hate when people tell me to call my Congress people, but it's annoying. And you seem like you have to do it all the time, but we have to do it. You have to do it. If you care about these places in the communities, look, don't call the White House. I don't even think they care. I'm just being honest. I don't think they care. Call your local Congress people, your local county commissioners, your mayor, your city council, your village council, call the school board for all I care. Just like call people, call rich people, in the town and say, what the hell? Let's help these. Call the landlords. I mean, what's going on with these landlords? I don't get it. I'm hearing from some of these chefs, the landlord's like, well, if you can't pay for April and May, you're out. What's the point of that? What's the point of evicting a successful restaurant? Then you got to find a new tenant anyway after the pandemic. It's stupid. Just let them stay. Just give them some grace period. I don't understand how people could be that cruel. I mean, I'm not a landlord. I don't, I got a nice landlord. He would, I don't understand it. So I would say if you care, and if you're watching this, you care, start calling people. The piece I wrote for Esquire, send them the link. Send them the link. Send the links, the things Helen Rogers, Pete Wells, Solejo, send stories that tell us why these restaurants are so important. And why they're important to our communities and our economy and the health of people. I mean, it's not just so I have a place to go on Friday night, I just want a cool I need a cool place to go on Friday night. It's not about that. They are us. We are them. We're all in this.
They are us. We are them. I couldn't ask for better words to end on. But I will say that, we often debate at Food Tank and with our constituency whether there is a food movement in the United States. And if this COVID-19 pandemic doesn't demonstrate, if we can't build this movement now and make it a political force, there is no other time that we will be able to do it. This is our time. The urgency is so great. We need to save our farms and our restaurants and the people who work at them. This is our time. And so please read Jeff's article. You can go to esquire.com. We'll also include the link in our social media on Food Tank, and at foodtank.com. You can follow Jeff at Jeff Gordinier. Jeff, you have made me hungry. You have made me angry. You have made me hopeful. That's all I want from these live casts. So you made my day. Get back to your kids, sir, and please stay well and safe.
You too, Danielle. Thanks a lot. Okay. See you around. Thanks for having me. Bye.
Thank you. See you. Bye.